This is the Rich Dad Stockcast with Andy Tanner, the show that kicks 401ks in the asphalt and teaches you to be the master of your own stock investing domain. And here's your host, Greg Arthur.
Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. Today is kind of a fun one. This show was created, or the concept was created through one of the comments. And it was a kind of a fun comment. And it's about, hey, we always hear about all Andy's wins, but we never hear about his losses or his mistakes. And so we thought we'd kind of tee off on that. Robert Kiyosaki, he always says, you have to learn from your mistakes. And one time I was in a meeting with him, and he made it a little bit stronger. He said, the only way to learn is from your mistakes. And so while that's maybe a little dramatic, it really does show you how important that one aspect is. And so since Andy does claim to not be the greatest genius, I think he'll be fine sharing a mistake or two. But if it is true that he's made a bunch of mistakes, then I want to ask Andy if that also means he's a genius. So Andy, what's the answer there?
I can with total confidence declare that I am not a genius. That we are 100%. That would be a big mistake.
So you're saying then that you haven't made that many mistakes.
And the other thing I would say is that I have made, I think I'm just wondering how much time we have in this episode. I wonder if there's enough space on the internet to hold it all. Okay. We upload this endless stumble bumming through life that is Andy.
It is Andy. Well, I'm right there with you, man. In fact, I think we could have a contest on mistakes here. We
will share some more stories for sure. What's interesting is I don't know, like, let's say that there's an announcement that Greg Arthur was Entrepreneur of the Year. I don't know of anyone that would grab the podium at the big banquet where we honor that person, and that person would say, well, gee, that was so easy to do. We didn't learn anything. We had no hiccups along the way. I don't have anyone to thank. In fact, I'm surprised all of you aren't Entrepreneur of the Year. There were no dragons to slay, no moments of peril, and everything worked perfectly with no help. So with that, thank you for the award. I don't think that's ever happened. I think there's tears when you think of everything you went through, and the people. When you make a mistake, it is so critical to have people around you to buoy you back up, lift you back up, maybe help you fix the mistake or at least learn from it.
And even forgive you from the mistakes.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is painful. But yeah, agreed.
So we'll talk a lot about mistakes, and I'll share a few of my personal ones if it doesn't bore people too much. It's just run of the mill. It sounds like everyone else. I did this and I lost money, or I did this and I screwed up, a relationship or whatever. Some of them were absolutely my fault, and some of them I was at partial fault. You never want to be a victim in this stuff.
Yeah.
When I make a mistake, I can talk about what the other person did that was wrong, but it's my I love the idea. Adam Carolla talks a lot about this. Adam Carolla talks about this idea of personal responsibility. When bad stuff happens, certainly I can look around and I can victimhood myself in almost every instance. But I could also say, okay, what's the line of responsibility? Am I going to stay above that line? So we'll talk a lot about that stuff.
I have one question and one comment. I'm wondering, if you have a formula you have from learning from your mistakes. And then I also, have you read the book, Question Behind the Question? It's an amazing book, and what it does is
add that one to the list.
Yeah, it's really an easy read, but it tells you to stop asking why did this happen or who did this.
Yeah,
and instead ask.
I like it already.
Yeah, what could I have done, or what can I be doing, and so it really changes the mindset. And I've been using it a lot actually lately with some personal
question behind the question. Got it.
Yeah. So is there a formula though you have?
I don't necessarily have a formula. In fact, I really like that idea. That's a great question because I don't know if it'd be a formula. Like I don't have a specific stock trading formula, but I have pillars that I work upon. Mm-hmm. And I imagine that if we analyze that we could develop a formula or some pillars of recovering from mistakes, some things that would be common, like we just mentioned a couple, right? Some things to avoid and some things to do. I mentioned the idea of personal responsibility. You mentioned the idea that you're not going to ask questions that don't matter anymore. Like, why did this happen to me? Mistakes just happen. And, to blame it on forces outside of what you can control. If you were to make a list of the things you could have done differently to avoid it, even if you hadn't seen them, you probably could avoid a lot of these mistakes. And sometimes there might be a handful that you couldn't.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, Robert says, learn from these. I don't know if it was him that said this. I think it may have been. I have so many mentors, but I feel like it's Robert. And if it's someone else, I apologize to that person. Here's a mistake. Don't quote things you can't give the proper attribution to. A wise man said, I believe it was Robert, said, don't waste a good mistake. Don't make one and waste it. There's so much richness in learning from it. So with that, yeah.
All right. Well, I do want to highlight one thing that you did just say, like maybe the first step is realize that you're not a victim. Because how can you learn?
Realize you made a mistake.
Yeah.
With that responsibility thing, Blair draws this line, puts responsibility above it, and he draws a line. And underneath it, he puts the word deny. Right? You deny there's a mistake or deny there's a problem. We could use alcoholism for an area of self-improvement. Someone says, well, I don't have a problem with it. Other people do, but I don't have a drinking problem. I have a drug problem. I don't have a problem with being abusive to my wife or whatever your problem might be. I don't have a problem with being mean, or I don't have a problem with, any of that stuff. So denial of having a problem is one. And then rationalizing it. Well, yeah, I drink a lot, but it's just genetic. It's just who I am. Or I drink a lot. Well, but I'm married to a raging beast, so it's okay. Rationalizing it.
I do that. I say, look, I have 3 teenagers. Of course I'm going to be drinking.
Yeah. Blaming other people, well, it's my friends that get me drunk, right? It's not me. I go out with them and they're the ones that get me drunk. Or you just quit and you say, look, I'm a drunk. I can't rationalize it, can't deny it, can't blame anybody. I just am who I am, and that's it. So that idea of living above that line when we make a mistake begins with not denying it. Hey, I screwed this up.
Yeah.
So, and then you try to make it right and you try to learn from it, right?
So let's hear from you some
financial mistake.
Something that you had to acknowledge you made the mistake.
Yeah. Whenever I make a trading mistake, I can usually go back to 2 major reasons I made the mistake. Temperament is, for me nowadays, if I make one, it would be a temperament one mostly. And then a lack of education. I was delving in something that was above my pay grade. Mm-hmm. And then I can list a myriad of others, but it grows out of those 2. The most money I ever lost in one trade, I can't remember how much it was now. Maybe I'm trying to get rid of that memory. I want to say
wait. Before you say how much you lost, let's go to break. So let's let people ponder.
The suspense king,
the Andy Tanner master. How much money did he lose?
A lot. Not too bad.
Let's go to break. Bad. Okay, that was 10:18.
Nice catch. You're good at this. That is for the producers, or the editors. This is the break.
Right.
We've had a few things go out.
That's always funny. Well, now what I'm doing is I'm keeping track of it so that I could just send them notes and
double check
and make it easier for them. So
okay, there's the break.
Okay, so you ready?
Yeah.
All right, we're back from break, and we promised that Andy would tell us how much, the most amount of money, Andy, that you've lost in one trade.
Yeah, I think it was probably I've had a couple of bad ones, but probably the worst one is I was trading Apple. This is a long time ago, probably two splits at least ago. I can't remember how many times they've split. And I own a lot of Apple, and owning that stock. There's never been anything wrong with that. I mean, it's who thought that Warren Buffett's best pick would have been in his 90s, right? I mean, his 80s, incredible. So anyway, I was in a credit spread on Apple, and it was a bear call, kind of the half an iron condor, and you probably should never bet against Apple, which I did. But I was so far out of the money, I thought I'd be fine. And I had traded these with some education. This is very early on when I learned what these were. And these are high probability trades. They're like 90% of the time they pay you, 90% of the time, which means there is that 10% that you've got to be, that's where you got to manage it. And there was a cruise ship that I had the opportunity to go on. And they invited me to go on this cruise. And I was, back in those days, I was a software salesman for the internet software, but I would use it, And so I went to go sell this stuff. And here I was in being stupid. I thought, you know what? There's no internet. This is back before you had internet access on cruise ships.
All right.
So this is way back. And I had like 3 days to expiration on this thing. And I'm like, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. And when I got back, that cruise cost me about, I remember it was $30,000 or $50,000. Wow. It was an expensive cruise. What's funny about that mistake is, there's so many things I could learn from that. Number one, I had not even learned my Greeks yet. I had not learned deltas, thetas, gammas, vegas, which, you should learn those if you want to make trades like that. Number two, risk is about control. The whole advantage of stocks is they're liquid. You can manipulate them. You can hedge them. I didn't know how to delta hedge in those days. I would just usually try to, if I was losing, pull the money off the table before I would, before it would bite me. I just take a big loss and try not to take a max loss. But that's like way not the best way. The best way to do that is to delta hedge. I didn't know what a delta hedge was. I was making so much money in these that, at the high probability, I had a little bit of euphoria as a new person investigating this.
Right.
And then my position size was, I don't think my position size was too big for my account. Obviously, I'm still here. We survived it. But it should have been smaller. And risk is about control. If I put myself on a boat and I basically gambled, right? I went from trading to gambling, hoping that it would work out and thinking it would be fine. And then they had an announcement that they were going to buy some other company. Usually your big gaps come to the downside, bad news. But like Warren Buffett just announced he was going to purchase it. Same thing happened. In fact, same thing happened. When there's an announcement that someone's going to buy someone else or do a contract with someone else, if Apple says, hey, we're going to use Intel chips, for example, now, Intel stock's going to go through the roof, right? And so that happened. There was some alliance made or some announcement made, up it went, and there's nothing I could do. So that's probably one of the bigger lessons that I'll share with my students about position size, delving into stuff you didn't understand, and making sure that you have your hedges in. So if you don't have access, all that stuff should be preset. All that stuff should be
okay. That's where I was going.
Done, by the way, that would have been easy. That's a temperament problem too, because even then it wasn't robust as it is now. But I'm sure I could have put in some if-then contingencies, and I just thought I'll be fine.
Okay,
so I deserve to lose.
Because otherwise, I would. Well, what were you supposed to do? You were going on a boat. It's not.
Oh, there's a million things. Yeah, a million things you can do. I went on a boat. I'm not doing it until COVID was over. It was sucked. I was masked the whole time, everywhere. Yeah. But my father-in-law had it on his bucket list, and he said, hey, I want to go on a cruise. And he said, I don't know if I'll make it past the pandemic. So we took him to Alaska on a cruise. And, I had internet access there if I wanted, but nowadays you can do, you want to have everything set up with contingency plans and, do it right. So
Andy,
that's a good example. You know what? Anyone who's ever done this lost that way before. So, yep, been there. That was stupid, Andy. I'm like, yeah, it was. So, would that happen to me again? Well, I certainly hope not. Hopefully, I would learn from those mistakes, right? Maybe make my position size a little smaller. Maybe, like, I was very tempted to bet the farm on a Russian play that I saw to the downside. And I took a position of 1,000 shares. Perfect. Not 10,000 or 20 or 50,000, 1,000 shares.
Right.
Made some nice money on that. Done. In hindsight, you always wish you'd have done 100,000 shares on any win. 1,000 shares was just right for this one.
Cool. Okay, I have a question for you. When I take your 4 pillars class, or even a lot of times on the show, I would say you are there's a big part of it and a big part of your message that is risk management. Did that develop, and maybe you don't know this, but then maybe you do, did it develop from that bad experience?
No. I as I looked at as I wrote the book, the Stock Market Cash Flow that introduces the 4 pillars, I had just simply looked back at the things I feel I needed to know. And risk management inherently is one that, we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about it in our classes, because the fallacy is that we can predict the future. That's the fallacy. Oh, my fundamentals are so good, I'll predict the future. Oracle of Omaha. Oh, my technical analysis is so good, I can predict the future. None of that is true. We use those things like a meteorologist to say, well, 60% chance of sunshine, 40% chance of rain, right? And the risk management of position sizing, adjusting, hedging, asset classes that are non-correlated to help each other, all of those things are huge in preventing loss or mistakes. Here's an important thing to know about mistakes. If I were to look right now, let me bring up my screen here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions here on my screen that are losing money right now. 8 of them. That's as I look at this portion of this account. The thing is, some of these I might get stopped out of. Some of these I might have to adjust. Those are not mistakes because they were part of a plan. In other words, we always have a plan for if it goes the way we think it will, and a plan for if it doesn't go the way we think it will. So let's say that, I'd have lost money on that spread, but instead of losing 30 to 50, whatever it was, maybe I lose, $5,000 or $2,000. That still sucks, but it's not a mistake. The risk management worked. I was wrong in the prognostication of stock, but I was right in having correct stop principles, if that makes sense. So some people think that any loss is a mistake. That's absolutely not true. And Buffett always, when he makes mistakes, he almost always starts his annual letter with mistakes they made. Like he came out a couple of years ago. I think it was the year I bought Kraft Heinz because it fell so bad. They had some impairment costs, and I saw the low price and I bought it. And he says, "Hey, it was a mistake. We paid too much for it." And he did. He paid 70. I paid 20 something. But he says we're holding it for these reasons. So yeah, not every loss is a mistake. Mistakes are when you don't follow your plan. That's a mistake. But if I have an exit strategy and I execute that exit strategy, it's not a mistake. That's smart.
That's an interesting concept that a loss doesn't have to be a mistake.
They're not expected that. They're absolutely executed perfectly. You ever look? Here's a football analogy. You ever seen a quarterback on 3rd and long throw the ball out of bounds instead of turning it over?
Of course,
because he's got a who's the punter award in college? The Ray Guy Award winner or whoever it is. You've got a punter that is a stud, and he can put them inside the 5, and your defense is stout. Maybe you're leading your league in defense against running teams, and this team is a running team. You're 4th and you're 3rd and 8. And instead of being a stupid, you look at time, you look at score, you're up. Instead of trying to force that first down, throw the ball out of bounds, punt. Just pin them down. Let your defense do the job. They get a pick six 2 plays later, right? So that's not a mistake to throw the ball out of bounds. And it's not a mistake to exit, to do an exit strategy or to use your hedging. If I know in an iron condor, for example, that I've got a 90% chance of winning. So I hate winning, but being profitable. I got a 10% chance I don't. I got to look at that 10%. And I have a plan. I got a plan for it because I know it's going to happen. That's not my control. It's not a mistake that this one went into there. They're going to happen. Let me ask you this. Is it a mistake when a casino pays out on 21 on blackjack? Is that their mistake? They paid someone? Oh, I guess I made a mistake there. It's part of their algorithm. It's part of their system. It's part of that loss paid out is not a mistake by the casino whatsoever. That's exactly how it's supposed to be. If they never lost, they'd have no customers.
Right.
So that's
I wouldn't go there.
So there's a trading one.
That's fascinating. That it's not the lesser of two evils because one of them is not even evil. It's
right. But if I don't follow it, but if the casino guy deals about too many cards or doesn't add it up wrong, that's a mistake.
Right.
If they let the biggest one I have made before is the table limit. If they let someone bet beyond the table limit, now the position size is too large and that person can hurt the casino if they get lucky. So they have a position size. Well, that is a good trading rule, right? My position size, I've lost money when I've positioned to the reward rather than the risk. When I've said, ooh, here's a big amount of money. I'm just going to go for it. No, not anymore. That's for the youngin'. That's for the young Robin Hood trader that, we'll learn that mistake.
Right. So the win is following the plan, even if the plan, because the plan has accounted for some losses.
An insurance company has actuarial tables where they know they will pay out some claims. It's not a mistake that, we shouldn't have insured that guy. No, they know the people are going to get in a car wreck. They're going to have to pay for it. The house is going to burn down. They're going to pay for it. They know that, but they take the unfortunate things that happen and they put it into their plan and their scheme where they can still be profitable. So understanding if you've lost money in a trade because you had the direction wrong, people are trying to always predict something whose defining characteristic might be unpredictability, right? If it's 80% forecast of sunshine, 20% rain, and you don't take an umbrella, that's a mistake. But if you take the umbrella and it starts to rain, you say, well, I didn't want to go on a picnic on a rainy day. That's not a mistake. You knew there was a 20% chance it might rain and you brought your umbrella. Maybe you're not outside playing on the beach as much, but you got your umbrella, enjoy your picnic. So there you go. There's a trading mistake. And I got more of those where we could, especially early on.
Well, hey, let's expand it.
Nowadays, not so much, but
let's expand it. What's a personal mistake?
Money. Well, I can give you all kinds of personal ones. That's a whole new chapter. But I'll tell you one of the ones that really bothers me worse than the loaning money because it hurt is I've been told, by like my fellow Rich Dad advisor, one of them really sat me down on this, is I have a tendency to be an empath. So what that means is if you do well as a student, I feel like it was my victory. I'm so happy for you. If you do poorly, I feel like it's my fault, right? I mean, if someone loses a job, I feel like it's my burden now to help. I got to help this guy get a job because I hate it when other people are in pain. I hate it. I hate watching other people suffer, right? And if there's a way I can alleviate that suffering. So I gave away. I mean, I've lost more money in my life by giving money away than I've lost in bad decisions.
So the mistake isn't that you're an empath.
And I've given money to people. This is a huge mistake. I've given money to people to try to alleviate their pain, but it is in every instance made the relationship funky because they felt weird and then I felt weird. And even not just gifts, even I've loaned people money I should not have loaned money to. And when they don't repay it, then you were taken in by their, like I was very easily taken in by a sob story. Andy's got a little extra. My gosh, what type of a horrible person. was really selfish on my part. Well, if I don't do this, I'm a horrible person. I don't want to be a horrible person, so I'm going to do this. So Kenny's taught me some good things on that, on how not to make that mistake, but still be charitable and still give and lift. But I've lost tons of money by giving it to people that I felt needed it and loaning it to people that needed it, and they just don't pay it back, and you just move on. So
it sounds like you lost tons of friends that way, not just the money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they were my friend in the first place in some instances, especially those that wanted loans. I don't think I've lost friends. It's just changed the dynamic of it to where it's less comfortable. It's better not. I've just decided it's better not to loan money to people that it's not a business thing. If they don't have the collateral, if they don't, if it's not an investment, don't loan it to them. Loans should be investments, not helping people out. If you want to help them out, then enable them to make their own money by teaching them how, right? And maybe it's a family member. You say, okay, here's a one-time gift. I'll help you one time, but I don't want to make our relationship weird after that. So when you have money, people will come for it for sure. And you have to have discretion that you don't ruin them by helping them in a way that really doesn't help them. Yeah. I've never seen it solve anyone's problem, because they wind up with the same problem asking someone else. If you're in a situation where you don't know how to make it or raise it, that's probably the bigger problem. It's not that you don't have a golden egg, it's that you don't have a golden goose.
Gotcha.
Helping people get a golden goose. So that's been an unfortunate mistake. Another biggest ones I've made, though, are in business. I mean, I've lost, take your breath away. I've lost, if my poor mother knew how much money I've lost in business, and several times. Took me a long time before I got a business or two that worked out. And the mistake I made in one, they wanted to bring on partners. It was a brilliant idea, brilliant concept, but they weren't executing it well. And when I had a friend of mine come to me and said, hey, here's this idea. It's a very innovative business idea. These guys want to take their business and change it to this new model. As I looked at it and I said, why do they want to give up so much ownership to us for a relatively small influx of capital compared to what the opportunity is? They should either borrow institutionally, because institutions don't fight for equity. They just want to be paid back. And quite frankly, in my opinion, right now where they are, just increase your sales by 20%. Just increase your sales. I mean, why not? And he kind of said, gave his reasons why they needed the cash. And I didn't listen to my spidey sense that said, Andy, look, you could sell your way out of this financial, they weren't in dire straits, but they needed cash to make it happen quickly. I'm like, sell. Just go like Blair saying, just you could train and work. And this was right around the time I read the cash flow quadrant, where I was all about buy the business, passive income, don't work in it, don't touch it. I knew I would get sucked in as a sales professional. And if Andy's a resource now I'm putting time into it. So I refused. And that was, I lost that money, everything we put in, and it was big. It was a big amount. All three partners that came in and brought money to the deal lost every dime, lost all of it. And none of us wanted to go further and save it. So I learned a lot from that one. I learned a ton.
So Andy, we do have to wrap up, but it sounds to me like almost every mistake you made due to emotions. And then what you did is you learn from the mistake using your logic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good generalization. Like I'll come back to this. It was either delving in stuff I didn't know about, right? Getting too antsy in the pants, and a poor temperament. Here's the good news. Through all the mistakes, like everyone has them. I don't know if Kenny has, I don't know if Kenny could tell these stories. I imagine maybe he could. I don't know. Sure I know Robert could tell them. I know Robert could for sure. But the idea is hopefully after persevering, like the biggest mistake you make is quit. And realize that it's pretty cool, because when you can lose an amount of money that seems like, well, no way I could lose that much, right? When you can lose that and then you come back again, there's a power that you realize you have that, okay, I can solve this problem. I can figure it out. And that toughness and that confidence grows a little bit. So it's actually a beautiful thing. So when the next deal comes, you're a little smarter, you're more resilient. I don't know, you can learn that in school. I don't know. The tuition in the school of hard knocks is too expensive, and the school colors are black and blue. And I think you can avoid those. The way to avoid those mistakes is with mentorship.
Yeah.
Is invest some money in mentorship in whatever you're doing. If you have real estate, get a real estate coach. Stock, get a stock coach. Get someone to teach you. And man, those mistakes can be less. But at the end of the day, if you can look back and say, wow, I got a little bit of stock, I got a little bit of real estate, I got a little business, I got a little gold and silver, I got a little crypto, and you just look at those accounts as, even though they've been hit on the way up, if you got them, you can look back and feel, okay, I'm grateful that I have an asset column. So, because a lot of people have no asset column. They have none. They have a savings account and a checking account. And, I don't know that you call your 401k that exciting of an asset.
Probably not.
Anyway, Andy, but thanks for the opportunity to talk about mistakes, because it helps me let people know I'm a real human being that makes mistakes. And it takes the pressure off me to have to be perfect and, end all be all. So I'm great. I am grateful for that opportunity.
That's a good point. Anytime I call you a genius, you tell me to shush.
Oh boy, I'll tell you.
But it's also really good to know that your teachers aren't perfect, that they also make mistakes, and a lot of what they teach you came from those.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw this in as a little segue here. As a teacher, you do have a bunch of courses that you're giving away free. They're in the show notes, so you can click on that. I think you have a stockcast.com/free also, where people can get some of your free education. So I do want to mention that, but not that you're the perfect teacher, but that you are a great teacher because of the mistakes you made.
Thanks for the opportunity to, I hope what people take from this is, wow, everyone makes mistakes. It's okay for me to make some, and you can come back from those mistakes. The good news is very, very few financial mistakes wind up being fatal.
Yeah.
Right. There's things you can do that are much more dangerous than losing money.
That's
right?
Super true. Yes.
Yeah. If you lose your family, that's rough. That's a rough one. If you lose your life or your health, that's really rough. Losing money, we can come back from that.
One of these days, I'll tell you a story.
Whoops. Earthquake. Cut. Now your sound's out. Now you got to plug your sound back in. We'll have to make it. You should have seen what that looked like. You should have seen what that looked like from my view, dude. Oh, that's great. Earthquakeage.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, that was awesome.
My dog just went tearing through and he bent my power cord's dead now.
Oh, dude.
All right. I don't even know where we were. But
you were saying, well, I think you were about to, it was like this important moment. You said, you're going to talk about the future, but
hey, I'll tell you a mistake real quick.
Yeah.
When you're doing a podcast, don't do it while people are doing construction on your house, because your dog will run through and rip your computer off the desk and tear your cables out.
There you go.
So, we'll see if the editor takes that part out. But there's another mistake to learn from. So from now on, dogs out of the room.
There you go.
Andy, I'll see you next week.
Thanks so much, Greg.
All right. Thank you. Bye.